Chase from Makefile tutorial. I'm here to give you a brief introduction of how Make works. So this is a Makefile that we're going to walk through together. It's got three different rules. It's got a rule that builds this program called blah, and this program depends on something called an object file in C land. It doesn't really matter, but it's basically saying that this file depends on this file. And then this second rule says that this object file depends on, in this case, some source file, but it really doesn't matter. It's just saying it depends on it. And we'll talk about what depends means and why it matters. And this one's saying that, hey, blah.c, if you don't have the file, you've got no dependencies. And here's the instructions. Here's the set of instructions on how to build blah.c. So you'll notice in some comments runs first, second, and third, and we will see that. So when we type make, which we're about to do, make is going to try and build the first rule, and that's it. But in this case, it's going to try and build this, and to build it, it's going to need blah.o, which right now doesn't exist. So it's going to go figure out how to build it, and it's going to say, oh, you need blah.c, so it's going to figure out how to build that. And this doesn't have a dependency, so it runs this. And then it says, now that I have blah.c, I can go build blah.o. You'll notice in the compilation that we're using blah.c, which is common. That's why we depend on it, because the instructions to build blah.o depend on blah.c. And then that's similar for here. So let's just go ahead and run it to get, okay, cool. So we've just got make. So let's run make. And we'll see that we build blah.c, and then we build blah.o, and then we build blah. So let's just run it again. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so it says blah is up to date. This is a little bit tricky. What this means is that this file depends on blah.o, but blah.o is older than blah. The timestamp of the file is older. And the reason the timestamp matters is because when you're building files, compiling files, or compiling object files, especially in C and C++, if there is, say, blah depends on blah.o, if blah.o changes, then it means that blah needs to regenerate itself because its dependencies have changed. So let's see this in action. Let's go and modify blah.c. So we're going to modify it. This is going to change the timestamp of it. So we're going to run make again. And now we'll see the second and third rules. Well, I guess this is the first rule, but the one that says run second and run third happened, but not the first one. Why is that? Let's go back, take a look. So this one is saying that, hey, if I don't have blah.c, then here's how to make it. The thing is, we already have blah.c. It's got no dependencies, and so it's not going to do anything. And in this case, this is going to say, hey, I depend on blah.c. Well, the timestamp just got updated. And because the timestamp got updated, it says, okay, I'm going to recompile this because maybe there's something different. And maybe my file should be different. My blah.o file, my object file, that is the output of compiling the source file, maybe that has changed, which in this case it has. However, we could not change it, but instead just update the timestamp of blah.c and then run make. And then you'll see that it also tries to recompile. Now we run make, all the timestamps are all aligned properly. So make really cares about timestamps, and it kind of has this dependency graph that you build, and then it looks at the timestamps, and from those timestamps it decides what to build and what not to build. Because if the timestamps are correctly set up, then it's not going to build things, because it thinks that things that have older timestamps have been changed at an older time than things that have newer timestamps, which is almost always true. So that's the introduction. Wonder if there's anything else to say. Oh, I guess there's one other thing to say, which is, let's just try this. I'm going to call the rule another, so I'm going to say, hey, if the file another doesn't exist, then run this command. I want you to think for a second. what's going to happen after the second time I do it? So the first time, pretty clear, it's going to say echo hello. But the second time, you might think for a second it might say, oh, everything's up to date. But that's not the case because another still doesn't exist. So we're going to run it, and we keep running. It's just going to keep doing this. But we can create the file by using this touch command called another. Let's do ls. We notice that another is here. Now let's run make. And now it's going to say, hey, another already exists. Another doesn't have any dependencies, so I'm not going to do anything. We remove another, run make, and then it'll keep doing this. So that's about it. One other thing to point out is that you want these to be tabs. If they are instead spaces, if you run make, you will get an error like this. Okay, good luck with learning make. It's not too simple. Don't overcomplicate it. If that is one piece of advice that I might be able to give to you, it is quite confusing, but in some ways not complicated, but very, very confusing.